Hello, everyone. It is the GBB podcast, the Gaming Bounty Board, and it's been a long time in the making, but finally got Davey on here, and hopefully we can break the curse. It's been
Yeah,
like
we've
nearly
had
a year of trying to get this to happen.
it's been traumatic, I think. We've come together, and I think combined now, I think we've probably done about 4 episodes together, of which nobody will ever see.
Yeah, no.
And so hopefully
Yeah.
today's the day.
Yeah. There was quite a few that we attempted to record. There was all kinds of issues and all kinds of stuff. It's been a wild ride trying to get here. But hey, let's what are some of the best horror games in general that you played in 2023?
Oh, 2023 has been so good. There's been so many just class experiences, and
Just
they're all
games in
different
general.
scales. Oh my
Yeah.
god, games in general, 2023 has got to be one of the best years.
One of the best
I think.
years in a very long time, no doubt.
It's insane. I mean, like when people put it up there and they say like, "Oh yeah, but 2008 was a great year," they think, "Yeah, it was," but
Yeah,
this year's been nuts. This year's It's been insane,
it
and
really has.
there's always and there's people that are like, "Oh yeah, I've completed all the big games," and I think, well, how? Like, how much time does some of these people have to be able to get it
Right,
done,
yeah.
right? And
I mean, don't get me wrong.
it's
I played a good bit of games this year, but I haven't beat most of them. That's for sure. I just buy
that's
them and I play them, and then I never beat them.
oh man, I've
That's an
gotten
issue.
better. I've
Yeah, I've
gotten
gotten a
better
little bit better.
with time. I've gotten so much better at that. Like I used to just have like an endless backlog. It would literally never end. I'd be like trying to chip away at it and never
Yeah.
do it. And now I just think, do you know what? I'm just not going to buy them.
Yeah, I
And
mean, which
then
is fair.
I'll just buy the thing, complete it, and then move on to the next. Although saying that,
Yeah.
I just played Alan Wake 1, right? A couple of weeks ago.
Okay. Hey, yeah,
And
I remember. I knew you were going to be playing it sometime soon. Yeah. What were
yeah,
your
and I
thoughts on
had,
that, by the way?
oh my God, dude. Not good. Not
Really,
good.
not good. Okay.
Honestly, Alan Wake 1, I feel like as if I'm kind of insulting the cult a little bit as well. Like, everyone says how good this game is.
Yeah.
And so I went in with kind of high expectation. I said, okay, well, it's what, like a 2010 game. So, you gotta lower it down. It's going to be a couple of things that aren't going to be as refined as they would be today, etc. and so on. But that's fine. Dived into it. And within about 3 hours, the 10-hour experience, I think I'd seen everything that the game had to offer, and then it's just repeating. And it's the little things that did my head in with it. And I don't know how you feel about this, right? But I'll go into them. So I'm playing it on like the hard difficulty or whatever, so which is normal, but they give you a hard trophy for beating it. And so you'd expect it to be a little bit challenging. And at all times, I had about, like, I don't know, 10 flares, 20 batteries for my torch. I had like 7. At one point, I had like full on like every single weapon.
Do me tell you why, though?
Yeah, go for it.
Because you are a veteran, like, survival horror player, right? If you're a person who's played survival horror games and then you go into something like Alan Wake, you play it more strategically, even though it's really not a game that you're supposed to play strategically, because it's actually an action horror game more so than anything. It is an action game. You're kind of like, it's creepy, but you're kind of supposed to play it at 100 miles an hour, like Max Payne or Control or other games like theirs. Now there's an element of strategy, right? Because you have to break their light shield and then you have to pop them in the head. But the thing is that majority of people who probably started with Alan Wake, potentially, and many other people I know have played it, it's like it was hard because they were not good at preserving resources. They were not good at like figuring out how to kill people properly. So I know a lot of people who actually got frustrated with Alan Wake because they said enemies were like bullet sponges because they didn't understand the breaking of because you can like break their shield and then pop them in the head and it's over. Like it can be that easy in every scenario. So if you have very little experience with games like that, it's a whole nother scenario. It also depends on like how you're going into it, right? If you're going into it like where you kind of knew that it was like this kind of horror like experience, you went into it with the mindset of playing it like a survival horror game. Whereas most people probably went into it with the mindset of, okay, this is the next game from the people who made Max Payne. So they went in there trying to play it guns blazing, which there's a middle ground, right? The game provides you with enough resources that you're never really in need of any. But if you play it too fast, then you're gonna lose all your resources, especially if you don't know what you're doing and you're just trying to like pump enemies full of lead, because that's not gonna kill them because there's a whole strategy to it. But so that's one scenario, and then you got the other one of people who are actually preserving their resources, who are you know are good at that kind of game. That's like two different scenarios based on two different sets of expectations. And I mean, even for myself, the main thing that I love about Alan Wake 1 is the story, characters, the narrative, the weird, Twin Peaks meets Twilight Zone stuff. That's what I like. I
Yeah.
like the atmosphere and the world building. The gameplay and stuff, it is a little wonky and a little like weird, but it's kind of, if you play anything Remedy, everything they do is a little wonky and weird, and it's
True.
always got its own like thing to it. And once you've played enough Remedy games, you then kind of understand the other Remedy games. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
it's they're not for
I
everybody, but when I played it, I found Alan Wake to be quite easy as well. Like I think it's a pretty easy game. Like I don't think it's like, when it comes to a horror game, it actually might even be pretty good as like someone's introductory horror game to a degree. If you are managing resources, because then that makes it easier. But if you don't manage your resources at all, and you're not like playing strategically, then you might be screwed over at some point.
a really good point. It is a really good point, and that's always something that you got to kind of check a little bit in yourself. Is
Yeah, yeah.
Your own past experience will dictate kind of how difficult or whatnot you find it. I mean, the thing for me, you mentioned there about like the story being great. That's one of the things I had a major issue with the game.
Really?
Right, is that I like the setup. I like how it is, and I'd never played Alan Wake, but I played Control. Right, and I played Control and I played like the Max Payne games, so I
Right.
kind of knew what Remedy were all about. But playing Control, and then I saw this references to Alan Wake, obviously, throughout Control,
Yeah.
and I didn't really clock what they were,
Right.
kind of thing. I was like, oh, I'm sure this is something, but I don't know what the hell that's referencing. Then play Alan Wake, I was like, oh, okay, I can see where this is tied in. And I quite like that kind of shared ecosystem.
Yeah, there's
The thing I didn't,
the Remedy verse.
oh, it's class. The thing I didn't like about it, right, in Alan Wake 1, is you find the manuscript pages, and it would be like, oh, I walked up the hill and a bulldozer comes to attack me. And you think, oh, okay, right, well, I'm going to be fighting a bulldozer in a minute. So there's like no surprises. I know that's kind of the point of it.
It is
the way
the
I
point,
thought it,
yeah.
The way I thought it worked well was there'd be like a cutscene of with like the FBI agent shooting at you through the window in the radio, the radio building, and then you find a manuscript page that then details what that agent was thinking and why he acted that way. And I thought that's fucking excellent.
Yeah,
Like that's
I think
good.
the manuscript pages, as far as world building and understanding the pure fact that all of these events have technically already happened because they were written, and you're just replaying them in the sense of like you're going back through them and kind of modifying them. But from the sense of like having surprises and so on, that just goes to show like the whole fact of it's not meant to be a true horror experience. It's more of an action game. It's not about the surprise or the, you know what I mean? So, and for someone like me, like the first time I played Alan Wake, I beat it. It's probably been I don't know, 3 4 years ago. The first time I beat it, even though I played it prior to that. And I didn't care about finding the collectibles, and I didn't actually do an insane amount of exploring. Like I did a little bit. I would go for like the stashes and stuff that are highlighted with the
With
glowing
the
ink.
arrows and stuff.
Yeah, I went for some of those and everything, and I recently beat it again before I got Alan Wake 2. I got Alan Wake 2 like a month or so ago, a little bit after it came out. And when I replayed it, I was like, "Dang, man, because I found so much more." And I remember actually hitting a few points when I played the game originally where I was kind of low on resources a little bit because I didn't do as much exploring, so I didn't find nearly as much. And then when I played through it again with like the prior knowledge, and then I like explored some more, I found like more manuscript pages, more ammo, more everything. I never had a moment where I was like, "Holy crap, I don't think I can make it through this." at all. Like I never even was scared to like die. But the first time I played through, like there's that one part where like there's a you're going through this area, there's a lot of enemies. There's like a destroyed train car and like some other things, and it's like near the end of the game. And and there's a lot of enemies. Like it was actually an area where I died, and there's the bear traps everywhere.
Oh yeah.
So
they're great.
That area was very challenging the first time I went through. Now, of course, second time I had a little bit of knowledge, but I couldn't remember exactly where it was. But at the point, like my original playthrough and then my second playthrough, the amount of stuff that I had the second time was insane. Like, I mean, I was packed full of stuff. I mean, I had flares, flare gun, tons of shotgun ammo, pistol ammo. I mean, I could have took on a whole army and have been fine. Like, but for the first time, it was like I was scared to go into that level because like I didn't have anything, and I like literally the only way I was able to beat that level the first time that I played through it was I had to run and just dodge enemies, and I ran through the entire level. I didn't kill anybody.
Oh my god!
And I just like scavenged flares and like threw them on the ground and just strategically ran through the level. That's the only thing I could do and avoid bear traps. But the second time, I just like pushed through it like I was freaking Master Chief in Halo or something, just like taking them out, you know, like John Wick. Like that was me in the second time around. Because what's the thing is, you're supposed to play the game aggressive, but you're supposed to also know to break shields, right? So it's not quite, you know, like a Resident Evil or something, you know, the way you're supposed to play it. Which, so I mean, that means you haven't played Alan Wake 2 yet, I assume.
Well, this is the reason why I went to Alan Wake 1, right? Because and the reason we're talking about it is because when you talk about backlogs, right? When the remaster came out on PS5, I bought it day one. It came out onto PS5, and put it on the shelf. And I thought, I'm gonna nail that. I'm gonna play through that.
Yeah.
And then here we go. We're like 2-3 years later, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should probably play that, right? So I'm not immune to the old backlog thing.
Don't worry, my 360 copy sat on the shelf for like 5 years before I played it.
Oh, there you go. Maybe it's a rite of passage for all of us. Maybe that's when you start realizing, oh, maybe I'm ticking through the backlog.
This is actually pretty good. I need to go do that. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the reason why I decided to dust off Alan Wake 1 because 2 was coming out.
2 was coming out, yeah.
And I'm only 6 hours in. I started it literally 2 nights ago, right?
1 or 2?
Because 2. Alan Wake 2. Completed one, no problem with that.
Okay, so you're 6 hours into 2. Okay. So I haven't finished 2 yet, right? I know several people who have. I was really taking my time, but I also have to admit that I got distracted by other stuff at the same time. So I was playing it, and then the holidays happened, and then like people bought me video games and stuff, and so I got it on Thanksgiving, and then I played it. But then of course I didn't play a lot during Thanksgiving because, you know, holidays, family. Then I played a little bit, then work got busy, and then then it was Christmas time, and like so I was playing other games. So I'm probably over halfway to 3/4 through the game, and I'm gonna tell you right now, man. It has to be one of the greatest games I've ever played. And it has to be one of the greatest survival horror games I have ever played. And this time around, it is a fucking survival horror game. Like, you probably don't even know yet, actually, how hardcore it is. You don't even know yet. Because you're 6 hours in, which means I'm assuming you probably have you started playing as Alan yet?
Yes, so I've done all the first bits, like in the subway and going back to his apartment and watching the video with his wife, and that's when I ended it last night.
Okay. So, did you? I mean, well, who cares about spoilers? But I'm not going to spoil you. But I'm just saying, have you ran into Sheriff Breaker?
Yes. Yeah.
Because he's hidden in that first like starting area, with Alan. If you explore before you go into the subway, you can meet him in 2 different locations. In that little city area. Yeah, there's 2 different spots. Yeah, there's 2 different save rooms that you can meet him in. I think.
I met him in the one, which was you like got up some stairs on top of like a building, and he's in there, and I was like, oh, okay, nice, this guy's in here.
Yeah.
And then I saw him down in the subway then.
Okay, maybe that's the 2 locations. I feel like there might be one more location before the subway that you can meet him. Yeah, it's kind of funny though, because his character is obviously a reference to Quantum Break.
Yes.
because that's the same
actor, isn't it?
actor, Sean Ashmore, and his name is Tim Breaker, like Time Breaker, And I don't know how much you know about Quantum Break. Probably not a lot since it's an Xbox exclusive, but that's
Yeah,
the biggest issue. But you could get it on PC if you ever did that.
I know that it's the same kind of Remedy style of
Yeah.
mixing that
and
the
it's
real
a lot more,
life with the video game.
It's a lot more
element.
action and stuff. It's a lot more like a Max Payne Control kind of deal. But there's a lot of cool things with like stuff that Tim Breaker says to you when you meet him in these locations, and the fact that he just like prior to that he just kind of vanished from the morgue.
Yes, yeah.
And there's reasons behind that. I mean, these are legally not, you can't really say because Remedy doesn't own the rights to Quantum Break, but there's things that he says like about Mr. Door and stuff that you meet.
Yes, yeah, the talk show host.
Yeah, because there's a guy in Quantum Break named is it Trench or no? That's Control. Crap, I forget his name in Quantum Break, but it was Lance Reddick's character, who recently passed away. The guy who plays Door almost looks just like Lance Reddick. You know what I mean? Like eerily looks like Lance Reddick. And like Tim Breaker will make a comment and he'll be like, he's like, when I can't control it. I just kind of like pop out of reality. And sometimes I wake up here and sometimes I wake up somewhere else. And the only thing that's the same is me and that Door guy.
Ooh.
And there's a cool little thing. I'm going to spoil a little bit for you, but it's not for Alan Wake 2 though. But in Quantum Break, the character that's similar to Door, he's like a time jumper.
Right.
He takes these abilities that he learned and he uses them to jump through time at his will, which I mean, kind of is like Door. So,
tell you what, that would be
so
be
basically,
a sick-ass power.
Yeah, and it kind of, because you have abilities in Quantum Break that you get by accident, but by the end, it's kind of hinted that you are on your way to becoming a time jumper. So I think that he might be now a time jumper. He just doesn't know how to control it like Door does. And it's kind of funny. Have you ever watched the movie Jumper with Christian Haydenson?
Yes, I have. Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah. So in that, like when it shows him as a kid in Jumper, like his jumping is controlled by his emotions and he can't control it until he's older and then he can do it however he wants. I think that's kind of the way like Tim Breaker's abilities might work. And as far as I know, I mean, I'm like probably halfway or more into the game and it hasn't really touched on anything. I doubt that it's going to touch much on Tim Breaker other than your occasional meetings with him. I think it's just a way to kind of theorize and have another added weird element.
But that's interesting. I mean, this is the thing that I do love about what Remedy being able to do here in being able to tie up their franchises. And as you said, even though they don't own Quantum Break, being able to just make references to that is great. Yeah. I mean, it provides stuff for the fans.
It's just like
come
Alex
into,
Casey.
Right? Yes, exactly right. Yeah, exactly. And that's meta as hell.
And I mean Sam Lake even came out on an interview prior to Alan Wake 2 and literally like claimed that Alex Casey is quite literally just an alternate universe Max Payne, and there's no legal trouble there. So,
well, it makes perfect sense.
But then again, how are you going to get Remedy in legal trouble for that character when they sold it to Rockstar, and Rockstar literally hired them to make the remakes of Max Payne 1 and 2 that they're currently making? So,
yeah, I can't imagine anyone, having an issue with it. But it did crack me up the first time you see like Sam Lake when he's being interviewed, right?
Yeah,
and he just does the Max Payne face.
That's Sam Lake as Sam Lake, though. At that point,
yes,
it's literally Sam Lake as Sam Lake. Then Sam Lake is also Alex Casey and other Alex Casey.
Yeah, it's meta as hell, this game, and I love it.
James McCaffrey, which he passed away recently. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. The voice of Max Payne. Yeah, he played so many characters, man. Like all the Alex Caseys and all that stuff. Like it's crazy. And he voiced, because he's the one, I think he also voiced was it James McCaffrey? No. Was it? I can't remember if it was him who did some of the voice for the other Alan Wake characters or whatever. I can't remember.
Oh wow. But But no, I got to
Less
say,
stuff.
like 6 hours into Alan Wake 2, and it is just an absolute revelation. This game, to me, it feels like this is everything that Remedy have been trying
Oh
to do
yes,
for,
dude.
well,
It is a
since
culmination
Control.
of everything that they have ever done in one.
Yeah, and it's just for me the things I'm loving about it, the survival horror. The survival horror aspects, as you said, it is a pure survival horror.
And it takes
The
so
amount
many
of,
great elements from the RE2 remake and stuff too.
oh god, yeah, oh
Just from
god,
the
yeah.
gameplay and all that. It's so much like that, and I love it.
The thing I always look for in a game, and I think this is something that games have just got better and better at over time, right? Is, I love the classics as much as anybody, but any like old school classic game, chances are most of the time they'll have like collectibles which don't really relate too much to gameplay or
Yeah.
to story. They're like a separate thing entirely. Whereas in this, it does what all the great games do these days, which is you just build system on top of system. So like the nursery
Yeah.
rhymes, you complete those, and it's not just like
Yes.
a little bit of lore or something. You get a
No.
nice little charm,
Yep.
and it's like
And
everything's kind of,
you actually can go to your case files and you can close them
yes, which is
because they have separate
sick.
case files for collectibles. Even the collectibles, the Alex Casey lunch boxes have lore, right? I don't know who leaves them, but they have lore. Like there's reasons for them being there. Because the
But no,
lunch boxes are basically serving the same purpose as the stashes in the first game.
yeah, and it's just, and it's not just that, because it's the way to upgrade your guns as well by
Yep.
finding that, because they contain manuscript pages. So it's
Mhm.
like everything's just building a little bit more on itself and just
Yep.
adds reason to explore, which is then just putting me like, I'm 6 hours in. If I was mainlining it, probably would have done this at maybe 2 hours. But I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, there's a little point of interest there. I'm
There's
going to go
so
over there. I'm going to
many.
look here.
Yeah, there's so many different places, and it really has that Metroidvania vibe to it, and that, like, the Resident Evil remake vibe and stuff. And it really there are, because you eventually can go to the town, and you can go back to prior locations with items you get later in the game,
Oh,
um,
awesome.
which is cool. And there's just so much stuff like that, man. And I'm telling you right now, whatever you think is crazy right now, it only gets crazier.
Nice.
The game literally never stops upping the crazy at any point. Like each new level is more crazy than the last. And so Remedy's big on like set pieces of like really big ones, like especially in Control, the Ashtray Maze or the Anderson Farm and Alan Wake 1, that kind of stuff. They have one really big moment like that in this game, but it's not the only one. They
It's
have
cool,
more than
man.
one moment that's like that. That's that big. You know what I mean? That stands out.
Oh,
It's pretty
dude.
crazy. Also, the boss fights are fantastic. Like, there's
I only,
actual boss fights, and they're great.
I only fought the only boss I fought so far is the FBI agent,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well,
Nightingale.
there are more, and they're all great.
Oh, dude, this is music to my ears. It really is.
Also, what do you think about the shadows and how they're used in this game in Alan Wake stuff?
Much better. Much better.
Because in Saga's stuff, it's kind of like the old one a little bit. Like it's kind of more like that, where you kind of. But the shadows they're probably one of the best enemies I've ever played in a video game. Like they're fantastic the way that they are, and you might not even know exactly how intricate they are yet, but they're pretty interesting.
The thing I like about it is that when I first started going up against them, it was like, remember, they'll get attracted to the lights, turn the light off, and I thought, oh fuck these shadows. I'm just running through them. They don't really do anything. Like, what? Why am I scared of these guys?
Yeah.
And then you activate the ritual, and then all of a sudden they're like coming after you, and I'm like, oh shit, turn the fucking light off, turn the light off. And then I'm like going through in the dark, and it's like pitch black, and I'm like, oh, and it's
Dude, the darkness in this game. It's perfect. It's so damn dark. Like any light makes you think that's how it is in the first game, right? Oh man, there's light. I'm safe, But if you see any light, you're like, yes, you're like sprinting to that shit because it is like intense. But yeah, I had a similar experience with the shadows, man. So like the shadows, I talked about it actually on my last podcast I put up with a guy who goes by the name Storm, and we've talked about it too. But like the shadows, when you first encounter them, you're like, okay, so they say your name and stuff, and it's creepy and weird, and then you're like, well, they don't do anything, you know, you don't do anything, so you just start like running through them.
Yeah, I think it.
But then you get surprised and you get sucker punched. You know what I mean? And then you're like, okay, so I can run through a lot of them, but I gotta be strategic. I gotta look for the ones that are different, the ones that are like walking sideways, or the ones that are like eyeballing me and like walking towards me. But even then, they'll sometimes fake you out, and they'll have shadows walk towards you and then dissipate. And you're like, ugh. And you'll put like they'll make you waste ammo in things that are not even enemies. Now, there's also one time, I don't know if you've had this happen yet, but you'll be surprised when it does. Even if I tell you, you're still going to be surprised. I tried to run, or there was a bunch of them, and I killed 2 of them, and then the rest just seemed like normal shadows. And so I go and I run, and then a shadow grabs me by the throat and choke slams me into the ground, then dissipates.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they can do that.
Oh, wow.
They can also shove you and then dissipate, and it's still not an enemy. So there are shadows who are not enemies who can interact with you to just completely throw you off.
I've had a couple where I've been thrown to the ground, and then I've been like, oh, my health hasn't gone down. And so that happened a couple of times. I thought, oh, these shadows ain't fuck.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not even remotely worried. And then, and that was then the first time that I then had a rude awakening, where there's like 4 coming after you. And as soon as you got like 4 actual normal enemies, whereas in Alan Wake 1, 4 normal enemies is nothing. You know, you got a flare gun, you just take them out, right? It's so easy.
The teleporting, sprinting ones come back, by the way.
Oh, real. I hope they've done better in this than they are in the first game. Because the first game, those ones just pissed me off.
Oh, they still piss you off. But they're just, they're more... Like, it's harder to keep track of them than it was before, and they're usually, like, you don't know that's what they are at first, because they'll walk towards you slowly like the normal ones do, and then they'll just go, like, they'll just, like, flash zoom by you, then they'll be behind you, and you're like, what the fuck?
Oh, man. Oh, man.
But they don't use them, like, all the time. They just use them in very, strategic ways to completely throw you off.
Good news. The big thing I've loved about this one so far, I mean, there's so many great things, but
the details, so good.
It's immense. The thing I'm loving so far, and I got a taste of it in the subway section, is just where you go in and instead of just finding manuscript pages and stuff like that, which tells you a story, you're actively writing the story while you're in there, and so you're finding clues to make you.
Yep.
It's like, why didn't they think of this for the first one? This is so much better. It's like so much better.
It's like the biggest evolution to the detective mechanics in video games like Batman and Murder Soul Suspect and stuff like that. It's the first time they've done something completely new. I mean, you actually write the scene like a movie, and then you have to play through the scene to find clues to then change another scene. And yeah, it's pretty cool.
So good, man. So I'm really enjoying that. At the moment, that would easily be... I'm 6 hours in, so I'm reluctant to say, it's the best or not yet. But at this stage with where I am, it's head and shoulders above everything else I played in terms of survival horror this year.
I think, so Baldur's Gate 3 won Game of the Year, which I think is deserved, right? I think it's deservedly won it because it's just such a overly complex, insane game that I still want to play. But I still think that Alan Wake 2 is like the majority of people's Game of the Year. It's definitely your average person's Game of the Year, probably. It's going to be Game of the Year for most people, because most people aren't going to play Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 is a, intense RPG with, like, immersive sim qualities, and it's very complex. Most people are not going to play that. And Alan Wake 2 is a little bit more, a little bit more mainstream than something like that. So, but I think it's probably the best game that I've played all year. Even though my personal Game of the Year is Dead Island 2, but that's just for many different reasons. Not necessarily it beat anything else, but it's just because it's mine.
You love Dead Island, so that's no surprise that's up there for you.
I do.
I bet it was like Christmas came early for you, wasn't it? As soon as that actually finally came out.
Dude, and it kicked off the year, too. So for me, that was like a great start. Like, and it's what's crazy about this year is it's just been banger after banger after banger after banger. I mean, you can look at come on. Like, even in the indie scene, we had great games. Games like Dredge and Cocoon and other games. We've had, we've had stuff like Dead Island 2, Spider-Man 2, Alan Wake
Dead Space
2.
remake.
A lot of twos. Yeah.
RE4.
Yeah, Dead Space and RE4. Both of those I have yet to play. I still need to play them. I haven't done that. Yeah,
Oh my god.
as a survival horror guy, I haven't played those yet. They're on the list though.
Great.
There's just so many other games, you know. There's some cool little surprises here and there. I mean, there's just so many things that have come out. It's crazy. What is your Alan Wake 2, you think that is as above Dead Space and RE4?
It's
For
tough,
you?
right?
I mean, it's tough.
It's
You're a
tough,
huge
man.
Resident Evil fan, big Dead Space
Yes.
fan. And I feel that. I also love Resident Evil and Dead Space. But man, Alan Wake 2 is good.
Yeah. It's difficult, right?
The
Because
live action stuff and everything, there's just so much in Alan Wake 2.
I think what it's going to be, right, is that at the moment, Alan Wake 2, like I honestly thought Alan Wake 1 was, if I gave it a numerical rating, right, I'd probably give it like a 6.5 out of 10. I thought it was average as fuck. I really just didn't think it was great at all in any way, shape, or form.
Not going to be popular opinion there.
I know,
But
man.
it's okay.
I know.
I get it, because Alan Wake 1 is definitely one of those games that's not for everyone. And like as a horror game, it's not great. As an action game, it's pretty decent. The story is hard to follow. I mean, so is Alan Wake 2, but they definitely learned a lot of their mistakes for Alan Wake 2 to make it a little bit more easy to understand things to some degree.
Yeah, I just didn't think it really worked for me, Alan Wake 1. And maybe that's because it's so far past it. I don't know what it is. I didn't think it was overly complicated. I thought it was pretty straightforward. I thought it just wasn't done very well. I just didn't really like it. And so then going into Alan Wake 2, I was like, oh, here we go then. Let's see what this is all about. And I've been absolutely amazed by it, right? It's blown my socks off. But the hard thing about this year, we're talking, if we exclude every other game, right? Because my favorite game of the year is Final Fantasy 16. Hands down. Okay. Hands down my favorite game of the year. I've
never been much of a Final Fantasy guy myself.
You don't need to be. Final Fantasy 16 is nothing like Final Fantasy. It's like a shonen Devil May Cry. It is the most hype-inducing moments I think I've ever seen in a video game ever. It's like it's wild. Like here, standing on edge, like let's fucking go.
Right.
That kind of hype level. Sick. But if we're talking just survival horror, I've never liked Resident Evil 4. I've always thought it was just an average game, right? And that's
really okay. I wasn't sure you were in that crowd. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say that I've never beaten original RE4.
Oh, well, never.
Wow. I own it on the Wii. I own it on Xbox One. I haven't. There's a few reasons for that. I mean, I originally played it on PS2 with my dad. I played it on GameCube with my friend who got me into got me into like Resident Evil 4 and stuff like that. I mean, I played it on the 360, I think a little bit, and then I played the Xbox One version, which is the one I played the most of. No, the Wii version is the one I play the most of, which I still like to say the Wii version might still be one of the best versions of that game.
Great port.
But I just never, I don't know, it just never clicked with me, right? I mean, but it also might have a lot to do with the fact that I grew up with horror, and I've always loved horror as a genre, but I didn't get into horror games fully until Silent Hill Downpour, and this was after Silent Hill Downpour had come out, so like a few years after, but it was before The Evil Within came out. So I'd played stuff like, you know, Halo and things like that had like zombies in it. I've always been a huge zombie fan. I do not see zombies as horror because they don't scare me in any way whatsoever. It's just mindless fun entertainment is all zombies are. But in video games, I mean, Doom 3 was one of the first horror games I probably ever played, and that scared the shit out of me as a kid. I did play Dead Space 1 as a kid. My dad bought it for me, and dude, that scared the freaking shit. Like, it made Doom 3 look like baby's first horror game to me, and like it took me years. I didn't beat Dead Space 1 till like 2 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, it just got hit. It just fell into the backlog, and it took me forever to get to it. And then I finally beat it, and then I beat Dead Space 2 right after, and Dead Space 2 is phenomenal. And I beat both. Now the cool part is I beat both of those right before, I beat both of those right before Callisto.
Oh wow!
Came out, and then I played Callisto. You know, and now don't get me wrong, I have a more positive opinion on Callisto than a lot. You do, yeah. You know, it has a lot of issues, but I think there's a lot to love there. But I do think it has a lot of problems, and sadly, I don't know if we'll ever get another one. So,
No chance. No way.
Glenn already left the studio.
Yeah, I'm not going to shed a tear over Callisto.
Which,
really
I mean,
not.
it's fine, but I think, you know, sometimes things like that should be given the opportunity to get another chance. You know what I mean? Like, because think about what Callisto did do, right? And if they made a sequel, it could be fantastic in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Like, if you just think about some of the things that it did, I mean, just from the visual perspective, the gameplay, which I did enjoy, and all that. You know, I think some of the levels could have been more intricate and story could have been there, right? And because there wasn't one. I did like some of the world building and atmosphere that they did have and some of the audio logs and stuff. There was a lot there. It's just, you can tell that there was some form of development issues for certain things, that they obviously were on some form of a crunch, but they were also trying to do their best to have like gore and good combat and stuff like that. And I think they succeeded in combat, gore, and just like kind of the environmental detail and vibe, and the overall visual presentation probably up there as like some of the best ever.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when you have a survival horror game like that, even if you want to be bleak, you have to have a story. And the game barely has a story, and the majority of the story you get is near the end of the game. And then every like thread that it creates, it then destroys. And then it like, okay, the first boss, you're like, that's fucking cool. Then they repeat it 6 more times. And that just took all the fun out of that. And then you get to a gimmick boss that's just about surviving. And then you fight that same boss again as a final boss, which I don't think is terrible, but it wasn't set up great. I think the final boss is fine. It just wasn't set up great. And I mean, come on, you have a survival horror game that is more linear than anything, which is not inherently a bad thing.
No.
Doesn't hardly have any bosses. And the boss after the first time is no longer challenging. All you gotta do is run in circles and just do damage and avoid it, and that's all you gotta do. You know, and then you have like two main bad guys who are never fleshed out. I mean, you had freaking Sam Witwer in there playing a phenomenal character, and you only see him like 3 times, and it's all near the end of the damn game. The main bad guy at the end, who's at the end of the game and shit, the main fucking dude who's behind everything, you only see at the end of the damn game. And and they play it off, and
he's a
like
hologram.
And you play it off. They play it off like, you know, you're supposed to like feel something when you get to the end. Like, you're supposed to be mad at him or hate him or love him or whatever. It's like, man, I don't have any feelings towards you at all. You're not even in the game. Like, I saw you as a hologram at the beginning and the end. I mean, what did you do? Like, I know I found audio logs and shit talking about you and text talking about you and all that, and like, you're behind everything, but like, you had no build up. It'd be like having Albert Wesker as your bad guy, but like, you just hear him at the beginning saying kill everybody, and then at the end saying, I killed everybody. You know, it's just pointless.
Dude, I mean, I got loads of issues with Callisto. I think for the things that you said that you enjoyed, I agree with you for the presentation 100%. I think the presentation, the atmosphere is excellent. The use of sound, and the visceral kind of nature of it, and the way they have like that volumetric fog's always been a massive buzzword this generation, but that was the first time I'd really seen it be like absolutely nailed. It was in Callisto, and I thought it looked great.
And I mean, the voice acting and the
performances were good,
the facial expression, the mocap, like everything, the animations. I mean, I had a big thing, like, I'm a big fan of like small details, and I loved that when you take your gun and you put it behind you, that it actually, your shirt is crumbled and it actually sits in your pants, and you actually, when you go to pull your gun out, it actually shows him pulling the gun out. He doesn't just like pull it out of his ass. He like actually pulls it out of the back of his pants. Like, he actually has somewhere to put it, you know? And when you get your armor, everybody's like, but the armor or the guns just sit on your back. That doesn't make any sense. It's magnetic. It's magnetic. No game usually goes out of their way to explain that, but it's magnetic. That's the whole reason that they fit on the back and all that. You know, the health bar thing that they got from Dead Space. I knew they were going to do that again. I love it this time just as much as I did in Dead Space.
Yeah, it's great.
But they also had way too many moments where they take away the player's control and have you squeezing through walls or climbing through this and climb. Like, don't get me wrong, Dead Space 2 does that shit a lot, but it didn't do it as much as Callisto. I even played Evil West right before Callisto. Love that game. And Callisto has more of those moments than that game has, and that game has quite a few. So Like, come on, man. Like, players don't need that much hand holding.
No, and I thought at the time, oh, maybe. Well, I remember when I did my review on Callisto, right? And I said in there like maybe it's to hide like some kind of loading or something like
Maybe.
that. Like,
Yeah.
and people in the comments were like, oh no, it was because apparently, I don't know if this is true or not. This is what the comments were telling me in my video, is that apparently what happened is that they designed flow, and so they just put in these things as a way to get you between from A to B, and it's like, oh, it's like the laziest solution ever. And I don't know which one I believe. I
feel like that's fans making up shit, because let me tell you something. When you go to open doors, right, you have to do that animation of like pulling it open or whatever, and then it closes behind you. But you can turn around and you can do it again, and you can open it back up, right? Well, I one time forgot something, like an item that I was gonna, because I like couldn't have space for it, and then I was gonna do thing and then come back and get it. So I went through that area because I actually went in the wrong place, and it was like when you first go to the medical bay, and then I instantly turned around and opened it back up, and then the whole game was gone.
No way, really?
Yes, and then it slowly loaded back in. So yes, those moments are 100% loading screens. They're hidden loading screens because they obviously didn't have the time to program everything to be more just, optimized while you're playing. So like, everything's loaded very much so section by section instead of all at the same time, right? Which is a typical video game thing in a lot of games, but they had those, I think, because they just didn't have the time to optimize it to, where you could walk through an automatic door and it be open already, right? They literally had to have those moments to load stuff in, and by doing that so quickly, I proved that, because it despawned the whole map until it did load in, because it didn't have enough time between from the first transition to the second transition to load it completely.
Wow. Oh, there you go. Maybe
so that's definitely makes a lot more sense than trying to explain it away by a pacing thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're
probably right. It's just people who like the game trying to defend it, which is fine. I like the game. I'd play through it again, but that is what it is. It's 100% used for loading screens. I don't care what Glenn or anybody says. It's not a pacing thing. Why would you use that as pacing? That doesn't help with anything. It doesn't. No. I mean, there's certain moments where it's like cool, where there's like the dead body here and you're like face to face with it, and those are fine. Yeah, but there's also plenty of moments where like there isn't that, and you literally go from. There's moments where you go from shimmying through pipes to vaulting over something to going through a door. And I mean, like, you literally have 30 seconds of like player control, or like, player controlled gameplay of like a whole like 2-minute, 3-minute section. So it had to be loading screens.
Yeah, surely.
And just optimization stuff, because they prioritized gameplay and visuals over pretty much everything else. So there's obviously behind the scenes optimization problems given their time constraints and budget and so on.
Yeah, and I mean this is the thing about Callisto. I think that's
also they're a pretty small team as well, and they're like a AA size team with like a AAA budget, and the expectations of that too. So there's just a lot of issues that went on there.
100%. I think when you get round to Dead Space Remake, I think it will just hammer home. I think the difference between like what Dead Space and Callisto is, because they're so similar, especially like with the plot points. Basically, like Dead Space is so similar. The thing for me, I think, and this is obviously a personal thing rather than like an actual disadvantage with the game, but for me personally, just the melee combat just didn't work for me in Callisto. I find it so like mindless. If there was like a parry, or there was something like that could have made it a little bit deeper, rather than it just be the hold left, hold right, hold left, hold right, and then just wail, stop, left, right, hit.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like boxing in a survival horror game, right? And I didn't mind it personally, but a lot of people were not like you, though. Like, a lot of people weren't like, oh, it's just mind numbing. It's just it's too easy, or it's you just left right dodge hit, you know what I mean? Most people were like, "Oh my god, it's too hard. I just can't play the game because I just don't understand how this simple mechanic works," which is fine, but I mean, come on, the game explains it to you like 3 times in a freaking row. That's how much that they just knew that this was going to like be confusing for people. I mean, they give it to you in a quick time event, they give it to you in a text box, and then they even go over it one more time after that just for good measure in a real time. And like, come on. And I don't know how people didn't wrap their heads around it, because it's not a complex system really. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty obvious how it works. I think a lot of people who went into Callisto just didn't play it like a action horror game. Like, I don't,
Yeah, it's
because like
definitely an action game.
you don't even really need to use the melee. Like, it's just kind of like a secondary thing. You know, it's an action game with some light survival horror elements. You know, I mean, you still kind of gotta, like Dead Space or Dead Space 2, even more so Dead Space 2, where you're still kind of conserving ammo, but you're meant to be aggressive. I mean, you go into a room in Callisto, you can see everything, and there's like rooms where like you have to fight, but they give you ways to do it. So I mean, you could go into this room, you could stealth kill a couple enemies, you could grab the explosive canister and freeze the enemies and then blow their brains out, throw them against the spikes on the walls. You can grab random shit just like Dead Space and throw it at enemies, and more like 2 where you can use them as projectiles, right?
Yeah.
But it's like people went into it, the ones who said it was too hard or that it was just designed poorly, most of them were just kind of going into it and trying, I don't know what they were trying to do. They were just trying to play it like either a stealth game or an action game, like you're trying to play it in like Call of Duty or something, because it's kind of like Alan Wake in a way. There's a strategy to the combat, and that's kind of the point. If you don't get that, then you just can't play the game.
Yeah, and I mean,
you can like it or dislike it, but it's still like there's a strategy to combat, right?
Definitely is, and it's all about just managing the horde that's in front of you.
Yeah.
In terms of making sure that there's not too many bullets throughout most of the game, and so you're thinking, right, okay, you're gonna have to stick to melee combat for a lot of it, and then it's right. Well, if they're all coming at you, especially before they patched it,
Which is when I played it.
Yeah. Oh, you played it after the patches or before?
Before.
Before. It was much better before. And before.
Actually, I haven't played the game at all after patches.
It's totally brain dead now.
Really?
Because like in
they made it easier.
Oh, dude, what they've done is when you were playing on Callisto and you'd have a group of say 3 of them. Right, that would actually be a challenge, because you think if they come at me, I'm going to get swarmed.
It's like Alan Wake. It's like Alan Wake 2 in a way, where like a small amount of enemies is like death, almost.
Yes,
I liked that. That's what I liked a lot about it, was the challenge.
In Callisto, what you do then is, like you were saying, you'd pick them up, you'd throw one away, maybe throw something on the other one to like kind of get them away, and then you could solo the one, deck him, and then kind of reset that situation, maybe throw one into a spike, and you'd have to look at the situation and be like, right, how do I
shots, body shots, that kind of stuff.
Yes, exactly. Now what happens is you engage with one in melee combat, the other 2 will wait on the sidelines, and they will wait, and then
you
could just totally, honest to God, yeah. And if one does hit you, it does fuck all damage. Like literally, it reduces the damage so much.
Before, if you would do something like that, let's say you ran into a bunch of enemies and you decided to melee attack one, which is already, don't start with melee. That's already a bad idea. So you're in the middle of your one-on-one fight, enemy comes up and your head's fucking no more. It's gone. So, you know what I mean? That's insane. So they just made the game pointless, basically.
They made it so brain dead now, where the other 2, when there's 3 enemies, the other 2 will either stand there.
Yeah, that's like one of the only things that like aside from its visual presentation, the challenging nature of the combat and how the combat played for me was one of the only other reasons that kept me enjoying the game. So now that that's gone, that makes it like hard for me to want to replay it.
Dude, I went back because what happened is, when I did my original review, I did it like when it came out, and I was negative on a lot of it, but I did really praise the difficulty, and I remember it kicking my ass, and I thought, wow, this has been great.
I died a really good. And I just played on I think I played it on hard, actually.
Oh, did you? I play it on normal on the
Yeah,
first
because
run through, and it kicked my ass.
I played through Dead Space and Dead Space 2 both on hard. The
Yes, that's
first
the
time
best
that
way
I
to play
played
this.
them, then I just like screw it. I'm just gonna go Callisto on hard as well. It was hard.
Yeah,
It was very hard.
it,
I had to get good at the combat. I had to get good at being strategic, more so than either Dead Space game. Way more so.
100%, 100%.
Um,
Yeah,
and I really think that it's weird, right? But there's something about it's like playing Alan Wake 2. It reminds me of two games a lot in combat and stuff, and it reminds me of Callisto, and it reminds me of The Evil Within 2.
oh, I love Evil Within 2 so much.
And it's just because I feel like both those games, Callisto and Evil Within 2, no matter how much you love or hate either one, there's a strategy to like the situations and stuff that is a little bit more than Resident Evil or Dead Space or other survival horror games or action horror games that I really like.
Yeah, I think when you get to Dead Space Remake, it's more like 2 in the fact especially if you're playing 2 on hard,
right?
If you got a swarm of them in front of you, you have to be using everything at your disposal, right? You have to be using the things in the environment. You have to be like destroying one of the arms, throwing that arm at a different enemy.
With Dead Space Remake, they pulled a Destroy Humans, where like they took a lot of the things from Destroy Humans 2 and put them into 1. They took Dead Space 2 stuff and put it into 1, right?
Yes, and it makes it so much better. It makes it so much better, dude. And like with Dead Space Remake, you'll get moments like there's a section in the medical bay on the first one, and that fight when you played Dead Space 1 original, fairly easy. On this, I went into it and I was so full of confidence, man. I was like, oh, it's going to be fine. No problem at all. And I remember getting molly-whopped. I had like all of them around me in the corner. And I was
How
like,
well did they do the regenerator?
Exactly the same, which
Still
is just
a piece
great.
Of shit.
Oh, mate, yeah. Still scary as
Still a pain in the ass.
Oh, dude. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but those
moments were intense. Those moments were intense.
They kind of kept all of it exactly the same, which is great.
That's good.
But what they've done in Remake is they've treated Dead Space Remake the same way as, say, Resident Evil and Resident Evil Remake was done. What they've done is they've added extra bits on top of the game. So what they've said is, well, instead of just having the nose to upgrade your gun, you can now find schematics which will then upgrade it further. And so you can find those and add those into your weapons.
Yeah.
And what they've done is they've added, and this is probably the best part of the overall package, what they've added in. You'll go into areas, right? And you'll have a choice between either disabling the lights or disabling life support in an area to be able to progress. Huh. And so you've got a choice of, do you want to breathe in the area? So you're on a time limit and you're worried about, you can't hear anything, obviously, because it's a vacuum of space. And so you're just hearing your own panic breathing as you're walking around, but you can see, or you don't see. And like both of them are just fucking terrifying choices.
Yeah.
And 99% of the time, I'm like, I want to see.
Yeah.
I don't care if I die of oxygen deprivation.
I also gotta say that like even the sections in Dead Space 1 and 2 where you're worrying about oxygen are they're like sections where you can see, so they're kind of a reprieve from the regular just being dark as hell all the time. But also they are kind of easier. Like for me, I felt like they were kind of easier because you kind of have the ability because you can jump back and forth. Well, in the first one, but then you can actually just fly around in the second one, right? Yeah. But you still have to manage your oxygen and everything. And so I feel like those would almost be the better choice most of the time if you're good at, the oxygen part.
Dude,
if you're not, though,
I mean, with Dead Space 1 and 2, especially, and 3 to, the oxygen, there was never any point in upgrading it. You always had plenty of time. In this, it's one of the first things I remember upgrading. Because I was like, this is intense.
Really? Okay.
And it's not like you'll be in an area and you'll disable the life support, but the gravity's still on. So you're running around as normal, but just where it's like, hearing your own breath as you're like stomping about the place. I tell you what, Dead Space Remake has just stayed with me all year as being like a perfect remake. So good, dude.
And I mean, it looks great. It looks great. And here's what's funny is when they announced Dead Space Remake and they announced Callisto, I was one of those people who were like, dude, Callisto's gonna be so much better because it's new, it's
Oh,
Glenn. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I didn't have a lot of faith in EA, and stuff, and like motive and all that because I just didn't. And then it turns out to be quite the opposite. Everything I've seen on Dead Space is by far better than Callisto, right?
yeah,
Even though I like Callisto, there's no doubting that I would enjoy Dead Space remake more, right?
yeah.
And
It's
hey,
excellent.
Resident Evil 4 looks great. That remake looks great, especially as someone who's not really the biggest fan of 4. This looks like it's actually way, way, way better than the original.
Oh man, I think this is like when we're going back to our games of the year, right? I
Yeah,
recorded on my own podcast in PS We Trust last night. We recorded our game of the year discussions,
I got
right?
to get caught up on your stuff. It's been a minute.
Oh mate, there's too much time. There's not enough time, bro, to catch up on stuff.
I know.
It's wild. But yeah, I did. We recorded it last night, and so I got my top 5 list in my head, and I put Resident Evil 2 remake as my number 2 for the year.
For the
Resident
year?
Evil 4 remake, yeah, Resident
4
Evil 4
remake. Okay, I
remake,
thought you said
4
two. You
remake.
said 2, and I was like,
Sorry,
what?
sorry.
I mean,
I wish
fair,
I
it's
could.
good, but
I'll put 2 remake in every year. I love it. But no. Four remake, yeah,
yeah,
came in at my number 2, and that's because like we were saying earlier, Resident Evil 4 original just didn't really hit for me. I thought it was okay. I appreciate what it did in
yeah.
terms of like I was around at the time, and
Hey, I mean, without RE4, we literally wouldn't have Gears of War. We wouldn't have
no, wouldn't have anything.
Resident Evil remakes. We wouldn't have Dead
No,
Space. We
nothing.
wouldn't have anything. You know, what I mean, we wouldn't have Evil Within. We wouldn't have any of this stuff if it wasn't for RE4.
Dude, exactly. And I appreciate what it's done for gaming
Oh
in
yeah,
general, but
I
for
agree.
me it was just it was never a survival horror game. It was never like a Resident Evil game, really. And so going into 4 remake, I was thinking, right, well, I'm in a really lucky position because I don't care about the original
Yep.
game. So
There's
even
no
if it
expectations there, really.
exactly, so even if they completely fucked it and everyone was like, "Oh, I hate this game. The original's so much better,"
Yeah.
it wouldn't have much of a bar to be able to beat the original for me, right? So
Yeah.
I'm in like a good place. Dude, Resident Evil 4 Remake is insanely good. It is so good. It is proper survival horror. You're watching your ammo all the time. And it's the first realization to me of their initial concept for 4. So 4's
Okay.
concept was supposed to be it's a numbers approach. So, a whole host of enemies coming after you is supposed to be intimidating, supposed to be scary. And it
Yeah.
never was in the original RE4 because you
Well,
had
except for the chainsaw dude, that one always got me.
yeah, the chainsaw guy was a
Yeah, I
little, well,
mean,
one hit kills. Yeah, that's a
yeah.
bit
I mean,
grim.
he's the scariest thing in that game, probably. Now, the chainsaw guy in 5 also got me.
Oh yeah, and yeah.
We'll
And
talk
in
about
5,
5 in a second, but I'll let you finish.
oh man, but yeah, with 4, it just couldn't quite get that right because Leon was just so overpowered. Like
Yeah,
all
yeah.
you have to do is shoot someone in the head. You
I
set up
mean,
for a melee attack.
you
You'll
do damn
clear them all.
karate and shit. You do mixed martial arts, like you you just
Oh, you're
fucking roundhouse
suplexing
kick them,
people.
and yeah. So
Oh,
yeah,
whatever you want.
a lot of you know, suspension of disbelief kind of there. You're just gonna be like, well, okay, yeah, whatever. It's a video game.
Yeah. Your melee attack would do more than a shotgun. It was wild. And in this, what they've done is they've kept the same kind of core design in terms of like it's still a load of enemies coming after you, but it's the first realization that a numbers game, if you've got like 6 enemies in front of you, that's a threat. And it's the first
Right.
time you feel like, oh my god, I got to create space. I got to move back. I got to use this to take this guy
Yeah,
out. I got to
it
do
definitely
that.
wasn't like that in
No,
before. Like, I mean, you would have a lot of enemies, but you're just kind of like, okay, yeah, I mean, I'll just shoot this one in the head, this one in the head, then I'll just kind of like roundhouse kick this guy, and I'll just whatever. It wasn't really that challenging. I mean, there's moments where it's kind of challenging, but it's usually just because like someone threw an axe at the side of your head or something. But there's
yeah,
no point where like there being a bunch of enemies is ever that hard. And on top of that, you move so much quicker than they do. Like they usually walk slow as hell, and eventually they kind of run at you. But even then, you can outrun them, you can outgun them. You know what I mean? Like it's
they'll
just
they'll run until they get to within about like 20 feet, and then they start
yeah,
walking again in the original.
yeah,
In
yeah,
in this, they are on your ass. And the great thing about it is that your parries with your knife is tied to a meter. And so, like,
okay,
if you parry too much or if you use your knife too much,
yeah.
it just breaks. And then you don't have that option anymore. And so you're trying to constantly conserve that. And
You
you're
get
left
more
with
knives though, right?
you do, yeah. But then the other knives that you find are like either single use or one or two uses, right? And I played the game through on hardcore for the first run, and I'd highly recommend that. It kicked my ass, and it was so good.
But it was rewarding.
It was so good. Oh, man, it's so rewarding. And you have to think about every single thing. Like, you'll be in a position where you'll think, okay, well, I've got like 5 eggs in my inventory. Yeah. I got like no knife. I'm going to take this hit. I'm not going to parry this because otherwise my knife will get destroyed. So I'm just going to take the hits. And then when I need the knife, when I desperately need it, I've still got it there.
Right.
And it sets you up with those kind of moments. And it's that kind of...
That's cool.
That choice of, you've got 2 bad outcomes, but which is the lesser of the 2, which is why I love the genre. And it just created that for me. So I highly recommend it.
It's that strategy. It's that, moment to moment strategy. It's things that like Dark Souls and stuff is praised for, right? Like they invented it or something, but they didn't.
No, definitely not.
Just to mention Dark Souls for a second, something that I find kind of funny is that everybody acts like Dark Souls and stuff popularized difficulty in video games, and this whole dodging, parrying, moving out of the way, like whatever was just a Dark Souls thing. Like, man, did you ever play like any game ever? Like, you know how many games exist that have like attacking and blocking and dodging and rolling? I mean, even play Devil May Cry or God of War, or any video game in existence. They just chose to do it and make it harder. They chose to be like, hey, this is kind of like an arcade game. You actually need to figure out how bosses work. And then they just got known for being like the world's hardest video games. Even though they're
not even that bad.
They're not even that damn hard, okay?
No,
I know. I hate to say it to everybody out there, but they're not that damn hard. You just got to figure it out. It's like playing every other video game, okay? It'd be like going and playing Devil May Cry on the hardest difficulty and expecting to beat the bosses without knowing how they work. That's like playing Dark Souls is like.
I always think about it with Dark Souls that it's like learning a different language.
Also, right? DMC4's final boss is harder than every Dark Souls boss ever, in my opinion. I hate that boss.
Man, for me, I always think about it like Dark Souls is like learning a different language, where your first time through, your first ever Souls game you play will probably more than likely be your favorite, right? I think that's because the journey you go on. I remember
it'll be like no other journey that you'll ever go on. It's got that vibe to it. The first time you play through one for the very first time.
Dude, my first one I ever played was Bloodborne, right? And I remember being at the start in that first kind of like village, but literally about 10 hours, just dying. And then
I haven't beat Bloodborne yet.
I still need best.
To. Yeah. I started with Dark Souls 1, and there's a lot to love there.
That's a great game. Oh, mate, I platinumed Dark Souls 1 remaster. I love it so much. So good. But yeah, and when it clicks, you're fine. And you're fine for any of them. And, they're never as much of a struggle as that first one is. As soon as you kind of get that
first
ingrained
time that you play a Soulsborne game is the hardest time you'll ever have with them. Now, I'm not saying that, there's a little bit of a learning curve with each game. There's a little bit of a learning curve when you go to like Sekiro or Bloodborne or Elden Ring. There's a difference there. Now, I will say this. Elden Ring is probably the best place to start out of the entirety of the Soulsborne games because it is the 100%. Most forgiving, the most customizable, the most like you can go your own direction and find multiple different ways to get to the end of the game without having to go to the same direction. So that one, if anybody wants to start just right now, start with Elden Ring because that's the best one to start with, But if I had to say, I, of course, play Dark Souls and Bloodborne and these others, but that's the best starting point for sure.
I completely agree with you because the thing about it is that I've got loads of friends who've never been able to complete like a Bloodborne or a Souls game, and they've all beaten Elden Ring because you get that moment where, oh, this guy's kicking my teeth in. Yeah. And it's not like, oh, I have to go through him. It's like, oh, do you know what? I'll go and do some side dungeons, and I'll level up, and I'll come back 30 levels more, and I'll just fucking crazy? Clap this guy. Yeah,
I've been on the final boss of Elden Ring since like it came out. I put like over 100 hours into it, made it to the final boss, and then I just forgot to beat the game.
Oh my god!
So I mean, I've done everything, right? Like I've done everything. I just haven't rolled credits. I've even fought the boss. I just haven't beat the boss.
This final boss is what I imagine is gonna happen, right? Is that you'll come back in like 5 years' time, and that boss you'll walk in there.
Hopefully, I'll beat it this year. Okay, hopefully that's what I do.
The boss will be like shaking, bro. It'll be like, oh god, this guy's like level 500 or whatever, and you just go in, you just one shot him,
Yeah.
and it's just credits roll, and it's like, oh, okay.
It's been a while, man. Like I don't know why. I just got like sidetracked by other stuff. It just fell into the backlog, you know. What's cool though is that I did like I'm set up for the what do they call it? It's the ending where you do all the stuff for the
Oh, the evil one, the evil ending.
yeah, the one where you get the soul thing where that you catch on fire in the kiln.
Yes.
Yeah, I got that. That's the ending I'm set up for because I thought that was just fucking cool as shit. It's just cool as shit. That whole quest line is so hard to do to even get that ending. Like just the it's so out of your way to even get the thing you need to do the ending. But everything involved with it, you're like, holy shit. These merchants are like there's something else going on here, man. Like there's a whole nother thing going on here and it's cool as shit. But yeah, Elden Ring is an awesome game, you know. And if you want to start somewhere, start there. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely loved it, man. Great experience. That was last year, wasn't it? Great game.
Yeah, one game of the year last. Was it? Yeah, game of the year
last year.
Last year?
Yeah, great game.
Yeah, sure. So get back on topic. I mentioned Resident Evil 5 for a quick second because we were talking about RE4 and blah blah. I actually like RE5 more than 4.
I used to agree with you, right?
I mean, compared to the remake, I'm sure you know.
Before I went to before I started reviewing them all, I remember going into 5, and I just finished 4, and I was like, well, at least I got 5. I platinum 5, right? I loved 5 on PS3. I absolutely loved it. Played it through with one of my best mates, and we absolutely adored it. And you know, we're a sucker for Wesker and all the over the top action that's in 5. Love it, man. And so I was thinking, right, this is gonna be way better than 4. And after finishing it, I was like, oh, 4's better. Like the systems 4's got, like with the merchant and upgrading and stuff, just works so much better than it does in 5. Like where you can die and then you can go into the store and just buy whatever you need.
Yeah,
like
the 5 store made no sense. Like it's a menu store. Terrible. Like it's a menu. Like it's not even an in-game thing. It's just a menu. And I'm like, come on, you guys have. I get it. Shinji wasn't involved with 5, but like, I mean, come on, man. Like you guys have a physical merchant that you go to. You know, this is like the biggest thing that even feels like it could be similar to an old Resident Evil in a way, and then you take that out completely. And that sucked, but I think the story of 5 is probably one of the best stories in the entire series, hands down. Like, it just has, I mean, it has really good boss fights. It has, like, one of the most easy to follow stories, really. And there's a lot there.
The thing with 5 is hard carried by the fact that it's the closing of, like, classic Resi, really. You know, it's the culmination of the end of Wesker's story.
It finishes the story they started with 1.
Yeah, exactly. And with that, I think they nail it. I think they nail it in every single aspect, especially when you play things like, you know, the DLC for 5 is excellent. You know,
I mean, Shiva's a pain in the dick, but, you know.
Oh, dude, never play that. I refuse to play that without somebody, that game. I have to draft somebody in to play it through with me.
I've sadly done it.
I cannot.
I've sadly done it. Yeah.
Hell on earth, that experience.
My first time playing the game was with my uncle. We played it split screen when it first came out. I played it with 2 other friends fully all the way through, and I've beaten it solo. I've never been the same since. It's probably one of the most infuriating experiences you'll ever have, because you're like, oh yeah, awesome cutscene, awesome boss fight, but then you're like, oh yeah, all the times that she just fucking died and it ended the game. Why make a character that is controlled by controlled by the computer, controlled by the AI, that can die fully? Like, you cannot heal them. Like, why are they? She shouldn't even go down. She shouldn't even be allowed to go down. She should be invulnerable. She should be invincible, right? Because it's just stupid. You should be the one that could die and just make it harder for her to revive you. But she shouldn't be able to die. Like, that's the worst thing ever, because if you just leave her alone for 5 seconds, she dies. You'll freaking replay a section 100 times because she can't stay alive.
Dude, always the case that.
But because of that, you can tell that they made it. You needed to play with another person. That was the intention from the get-go.
100%. I mean, and the thing about it is, if you think, oh well, I'm going to work with Sheva, you know, I'll give her some stuff so that she stays alive. You know, I'll make sure I'm not going to hold it all. I'm not going to be some kind of dirty brat. I'm going to give her what she needs, she'll then just be started whipping out a magnum on basic enemies, and you think, what are you doing, Sheva?
Yeah,
Like,
and
this
the
is
thing
overkill.
is that she also carries ammo, so she can run out of ammo. It's
Yeah.
not infinite. Like, it's just like you. She can run out of ammo. So then she just starts shooting shit that don't even need to be worried about. Then she doesn't have any ammo. Then she's gonna die because all she has is a damn knife. Like, what?
Madness.
It just killed me. But
Madness.
yeah, that's the worst part about 5. Everything else is pretty great. I actually really liked 5. I think it gets too much shit. Like, I think people shit on it way too much. Like, it's probably one of the better action game Resident Evils. Story wise, probably one of the best. Bosses and set pieces, some of the best. I mean, Chris punching a boulder will be known throughout history for the rest of time. You know, and it would really just continue to cement that blowing shit up at the end of the game with rocket launchers too. So,
dude, I've never
just
tried to
become
push
like
a
a
boulder.
Resident Evil thing.
I've never tried. Everyone shits on Chris for punching the boulder. Have they tried moving a boulder? Maybe punching it's the way to go. Maybe you got to start hooking it to the body. I don't know.
Rolling a boulder probably wouldn't be that bad, like rolling it downhill. But rolling it on flat ground with your fists, I mean, that's impressive. This man was obviously on roids. I mean, look at him from 1 to 5. Come on. He went through a lot of Arnold cycles in between, okay?
Mate,
he went and watched Arnold's documentary, and he's like, I can do this. But he's like, I'm also going to take a lot more steroids. And he's just
literally.
They gave him yeah, they're just like raisins.
He had nothing, bro. There's nothing left.
He's like, you know what? I think they got some of that experimental like stuff. He's got a little bit of bioweapon in him. It's like just like a really powerful steroid. That's the only reason he can go toe to toe with Wesker. He's got bioweapon steroids, and Wesker's got everything else, you know, and they're just 1-on-1, mano a mano.
Mate, on Lost in Nightmares, the man
they gotta find a way to bring Wesker back.
Oh, they have to. I mean, this is the thing now is, without spoiling it, he's in RE4 remake, right? Without going into what he does, he's in there, and it sets up at the end of that. It sets up the potential it sets up RE5 basically. I wonder if then when they eventually do RE5 remake, which I hope is actually a while off because I'm hoping to see Code Veronica next. It makes perfect sense for me. It's how you can set up showing how Wesker survives the mansion, how he survives getting stabbed by the tyrant. You can kind of flash back to all that and show that in more detail rather than it being in some of the spin-off games. I think it's in Umbrella Chronicles is where they show that for the first time. Right. So they can actually like make that into the main line, and they can show his powers off and show how he sources Chris at the end of Code Veronica, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm hoping we get that first. But with RE5 Remake, they got a real chance to kind of omit the fact that they kill Wesker, and they can just either get him away. He should always, I think that, and this has been something that has kind of haunted Resident Evil, I think, ever since. And it's why 6 definitely didn't have the kind of same kind of pizzazz. Oh, 6 sucks ass, man. It sucks. It sucks so much.
Not only do I I do like the action. I do like how you're like Resident Evil John Wick. I think that shit's cool as hell. I love fucking karate kicking people. I love how you can fall to the ground and just like spin around, do some fucking crazy shit. You can shoot while you're on the ground. You can almost do Max Payne dives and shit. It's cool, yeah. But it's the wrong game. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's the wrong game, and oh, why'd they have to have like 4 campaigns? Why? And they go over the same shit like multiple times. It kills me. You'll go through like the same boss fights from like 3 angles.
4 angles. Like, yeah. You will.
4 with you get to do when you do Ada's campaign, yeah.
The thing for me, right, is that I always thought that it was that everyone on the internet agreed that 6 sucked.
Was it Hunk with Ada in that campaign? Was it Hunk?
No, it's just if it was Hunk, it would be cool. It's just some random dude.
Okay, yeah. Because I never
a random guy.
Because they gave that away for free like after the fact, and then I played a little bit. I never did beat it because I was like, I just don't like this anymore. Like I played through every campaign, I finished the game, and I just despised it at that point. They did some cool things, like that one dude, I forget his name, that runs after you in Jake's campaign.
Ustanak, yeah.
Yeah, he was cool as shit. I mean, he was just like
he was cool.
Like a nemesis. Really cool nemesis type thing, but you know, it was the best part, like the whole game. And you know, Leon's campaign is like survival horror for about 5 minutes.
And then
decent. You know, and
It's
his campaign is probably the best one in my opinion. And then Chris's, dude, that shit starts off balls to the walls already. Like it's already just like, you know, you already got like 2 damn giants and shit in there, and I'm like, okay,
and you get to the end, and then the guy shooting lasers out of his arm because
yeah,
he's mutated, right? Like the
that's how
and it got
mutations work. Yeah.
yeah, you get laser arm. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. But
Oh,
the thing
that's
with
okay.
6,
I get
right?
it. Yeah, yeah. That's what Chris's next evolution is laser arms.
As soon as
It's
his
like 2
testes,
giant lightsabers on his arms.
mate, as soon as his testes reduce to nothing, you know, he's
Yeah.
at 99% power.
Well,
He's
he
got
got
the
off the
raisins. As soon
cycles
as they're
because he got a little
gone,
bit smaller. He's still, you know, lingering some strength there, but
he's
he
back
got
up in 8.
smaller. Yeah, he got a little
He's
beefier in 8 from 7. Yeah, he just
yeah,
doesn't know when to stop, man. He just I don't know why he stopped in 7, but you know, in 8 he's like, ah, you know what? Might as well get back on. It's all right. They're gonna
yeah. Well,
need me. They're gonna need me.
what happened is he stopped
Makes the
taking
bullets
the.
fire faster when I pull the trigger on roids.
What happened is as soon as he stopped cycling, his face changed, and
Yeah,
he
the
lost all
whole
his weight.
shape.
Yeah, everything changed, and then he was like,
He
"Oh,
was
actually,
on human growth hormones that changed his whole body just shape and structure.
his
His
jaw."
bones shifted.
Yeah, they did. And then he was like, "Actually, I look like just a default character, create a little soy boy bitch."
All
And
right,
so he
let's get
starts
back on the
cropping him
roids
again.
again.
Yeah, I've got no choice. It's like his wife
I love it,
Sharon's
man.
at home, and she's like, "Chris, I preferred you before, even though you were, you know, you'd go around and you start punching the fridge when we run out of ham. I
Then I have
preferred
to
you before."
remind you that's a refrigerator, honey. That's not a boulder. Wesker's not in there, okay?
Oh
He
man,
just
but
I could just imagine Chris, man. Like he just sees Wesker in his dreams and shit. He just wakes up and he's just pissed. He just starts punching shit. Like he
she's
goes
like,
sleepwalking through the house and just punches holes and everything. Like and he just sees Wesker everywhere.
he's like the Kool-Aid man, bro. He doesn't
Yeah,
need a
he
door. He
just
just
busted
walks
through
through
walls.
walls.
I
Yeah.
don't know why they didn't play on that more. Like, why didn't they just do like another Resident Evil game where you're playing as Chris, just like, but it's like a Hulk game, you know? You just fucking shit up all the time. Like,
What I'd like would be if it was just like a day in the life simulator for Chris Redfield, and
yeah,
he's off duty, he's at
yeah,
home, and so
yeah,
he's trying to like he's trying to put water in his glass, and he just grabs the
yeah.
glass, it smashes in his hand,
Smashes,
he
yeah.
like bends the tap.
Just make it like a walking simulator kind of game, but like it's Chris dealing with the depression and anxiety that he got from finally killing Wesker and how it haunts his everyday life. It's a horror game from a whole nother angle.
Oh man,
Internal. Like
yeah,
it's
definitely.
more psychological than Silent Hill. He just
Your
hears
wife just says
Wesker.
your wife just says
You
one thing out
suck.
of line, and
Yeah.
next thing you just got two choices. You either just got to give her the backhand or throw her
Yeah.
through the wall.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Something's
the
going to
only
happen to her.
options. Yeah.
Yeah,
The only
something's
options.
going to happen to her.
No, I
Oh
love it.
man. But yeah, going back to 6, what's wild is, right, that I thought the internet was just totally joined up on this, that everyone hates 6, that it was just shit, everyone hates it. And then what's happened is
Yep.
this revisionist history has started to happen where people who maybe it was their first Resident Evil or their first experience into the franchise, they've grown up and learned how to type on a keyboard now. And so they're then coming into my review and they're like, oh, you're wrong. Resident Evil 6 is sick. And the entire comment section,
Which is fair,
full.
you know. I mean,
Nah, grow up.
He's like, nah.
Grow up.
Well,
They're
I mean, okay,
wrong,
look, I
man.
mean, it's fair to some degree given the fact that every game that someone hates, someone else is going to love, and every game you love,
True.
someone else is going to hate it. And that's just how it is,
True.
you know. I mean, you could take, let me think. I mean, you take something like Dead Island, right? I grew up, I didn't really grow up, but I mean, I grew up somewhat with it. I was a teenager when it came out in 2011. And so I played it with a lot of friends. I played it solo. It's just a game that like has always been special to me. But you know, others found it to be just like mediocre trash, and that's cool. But you know, so it's just kind of like that perspective. Some people, you know, grew up with Resident Evil 1. Some people grew up with Resident Evil 4, and some people grew up with Resident Evil 6. It's just or 5, like me. I like. I mean, I've defended 5 several times. And a lot of people hate 5. Like, a lot of people hate 5. I almost think some people hate 5 more than 6 sometimes. Like, I just see a lot more hate for 5. And I think it's just because the time that 5 came out right after 4, there was already, you know, things going down a wrong direction kind of thing. But I hate when people say 5 was the reason that Resident Evil got thrown off track when it literally was 4. Like
100% was 4. Yeah,
like
100%.
that was the point though. Like it wasn't supposed to be. I mean, Shinji Mikami was never going for like a classic Resident Evil feel when he made 4. That it was never the intention, right?
No, well, he just done Resident Evil Remake, and he absolutely nailed it. So there's not much more you can do with that, right?
He just wanted to innovate.
It.
He just wanted to do something new.
Yeah.
And he did, and he defined an entire new generation of people in video games going forward. I mean, literally without him, we wouldn't have Gears of War and Dead Space, just to name a few, right?
Oh, so many games take inspiration from 4.
And then Gears of War would go on to popularize the cover-based shooter, and we wouldn't have that either. So, like, you wouldn't have Uncharted, you know what I mean? If you did have Uncharted, it would be completely different because it wouldn't have, like, cover-based mechanics. It wouldn't have the over-the-shoulder view. We probably wouldn't even have stuff like Demon Souls and Dark Souls, or maybe, but maybe not. It might be different. You know, we probably wouldn't have the new God of War games because we wouldn't have that like close over the shoulder view.
You're right, and it's always a thing with some of these games that make such an impact that they define the way that the games can be.
Yeah.
Without those, like you know, if you want to take it back even further, you think about like Mario 64, right? If we never had that, what
we would never have got
reality
Banjo-Kazooie, which I think did it even better, right? So without Mario 64, there wouldn't be Banjo-Kazooie.
Oh.
Yeah, I know
that's someone's going to be.
You know what's funny? Fuming. I'm having deja vu right now because I feel like we've talked about that before in one of those prior episodes, and I feel like me saying this right now is another deja vu that we did then. This just goes to explain how long it's taken to do this. How many times we've recorded, canceled? It's a curse, but we've broken it. God, I hope we broke it.
Ami. It's like Alan Wake. It's very meta, mate. You know, you're referencing things that you wrote in the manuscript from a year ago,
from the last
forgotten episode.
It's crazy, dude. It's bonkers. But you know, that's just how it is. I mean, these small things that a lot of times people don't even pay attention to can define the industry going forward. You know, the way that like how meta something like Spec Ops: The Line was, or Far Cry 3 on like pointing out just violence in video games and stuff, and kind of like making you think about just how violent things are. I mean, that's defined a whole nother like set of games, or just the first, you know, stuff like Doom or Resident Evil 4, or, you know, different things like that. Not even inherently just for their genres, but like for games in general, defined what games could do. You know, you look at a game like System Shock, or a game like, you know, BioShock. Here's another thing that people forget about BioShock. At least it's kind of horror, so it's kind of on topic. But the thing with BioShock people don't understand is like the people who hate it are the people who like immersive sims, because BioShock isn't one. The people who love it just grew up with it, right? Or, you know, just appreciate it for the shooter that it is. But
I didn't realize people hated BioShock. Is that a real thing?
Yes, there's a lot of people who don't like BioShock, yeah.
Whoa, that's wild to me.
It's a 50-50 split. A lot of people find it to be overrated, and stuff like that, just because of, I don't know. I mean, it has flaws, right? But everything does, you know. But
yeah, of course it does.
There's a lot of there's camps. So I mean, you got the people like, you know, some people view BioShock as an immersive sim and some don't, and of course, immersive sim is a hard thing to explain, but it's not one. It has like light qualities of it, like being able to electrify water and those kind of like systems, but it's not really a Deus Ex or a Prey or a Dishonored, you know. But the thing is with BioShock, because of the fact that it was even lightly an immersive sim, if that game would have never been as popular as it was, we would literally have 0 immersive sims today. Because without the popularity and success of BioShock, nobody would even know, to even the smallest degree, what that even is. BioShock took a type of game that is still hard to sell, still hard to market, and still hard to make people understand, and sold it, which then allowed people to be like, okay, these kind of games can sell, even after 20 years of them being just niche. And then that's the only reason stuff like Dishonored happened, or the Deus Ex reboot series and stuff like that. Without BioShock, none of those would have happened. Also, without BioShock, we would have never got like audio logs and Well, System Shock 2, I think, had audio logs, but we wouldn't have got just this enhancement of environmental storytelling to the degree we have today in a lot of games.
Exactly right. And then you think how that would have impacted things like The Last of Us and everything
Oh, yeah.
else that then has become cultural icons. I think, for me, like the one that I remember at the time thinking like this is a cultural shift. And there's, I think everyone experiences them, as time goes on. And especially with hindsight, you realize, oh my God, that's had such an impact.
Right.
But for me at the time, the one that stands out to me and why it's regarded as like my favorite game of all time is Metal Gear Solid. I remember playing that and being like, oh my God, like they can have this level of story and this level of depth and this level of interactivity and how I can go about
being
doing
meta
stuff.
As hell.
Extremely meta.
Unplugging your controller from port 1 to put it into port 2, that kind of stuff, mind blowing.
Dude,
right?
Absolutely insane. And just having voice acting up to a level that it's like a Hollywood production and the way that like cutscenes were.
Yeah, I mean, prior to that,
two people like this, like,
and prior to that, you got to think like, what year did Metal Gear Solid 1 come out? Was that
90? Was it 98? I'll tell you now. I'll Google it. I think it's either 90. I think it's 98, but I wouldn't want to be responsible for my actions if I got that wrong. Metal Gear Solid release date. Let's have a look. 1998. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, look at that. The year I was born. What a good year.
Oh. 1989 was the year of our Lord. That's when I was born, my friend.
Oh,
so
okay. Well, I guess we have different lords, but it's okay. But no. Like, so yeah, Metal Gear Solid, man. So prior to that, I mean, you had elements of, you had voice acting. Voice acting really got big in like first person shooters and stuff with like Duke Nukem. You had things like System Shock with Shodan, but that wasn't your character. That was just one character in the whole game. And you had other things, but it was really Metal Gear Solid that showed that it could be like a movie. Like it could be a script and like just voice acting from multiple different characters that were like helping tell a story versus just being supplemental to what was being told, And like, it's still impressive to this day, the things that Metal Gear Solid 1 did. And honestly, Hideo Kojima is still pushing the bar all the time. Even with his games being a lot of times, weird and just different and not for everybody. But he still pushes the bar one way or the other, Death Stranding 100%. Being a perfect example of that.
Yeah, man. I love Death Stranding. And I totally get why people don't like it. I
haven't beat Death Stranding, and I rented it sometime when it first came out, and I do like it. It's weird, right? So it's like when you first play it, you're like, is this fun? Does it need to be fun? Like, what is fun? You know what I mean? Like, you're questioning your life when you're playing it. But it is good. It does have a good loop. The overall meaning behind it, like the reason it was made, a lot of the elements of like people can affect your world and you can affect others' world, and that just like sense of effect on things is really good. It makes everything seem a little bit more alive, and especially in a world that is so dead.
I just like the fact that Death Stranding just doesn't really care if it makes sense. Like the whole point, your main way to fight enemies is to bottle your piss, and to throw it at ghosts. Right, like it's totally wild.
Yeah,
but
and a lot of it doesn't make sense.
So
and your healing item is monster, so
yeah, or bugs. You can eat some
or bugs. But I mean, monster energy is what you put in your canteen and stuff like that. So
that's true.
Pretty interesting.
True.
I'm like, okay, monster energy drink is your healing item.
It feels like the most it's the most realistic part. I think 99% of my blood is monster energy. So
drinks. Yeah, I mean, whatever. But yeah, it's a game that just doesn't really care about what you think. It doesn't care about what anybody thinks or what the industry thinks or anything. And he just went for a vision and he created it. More people loved it than hated it. So it was a success. He's going to make another one. You know what I mean? He's making a Death Stranding 2. He's also making a weird ass project with Xbox now. So.
Yeah,
that he announced at the Game Awards that I forgot the name of. Him and Jordan Peele.
OB or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, OB he's making it with Jordan Peele.
Yeah, and
it's using that new AI technology that they used for the trailer that showed those like real actors saying random crap. Those were actually AI, that was AI, not actors.
Oh wow, really? I didn't
That was
realize
the
that.
actors, but it was that new AI. I forget what it's called. It came out a couple years ago. That's used to completely make like recreations of people, um, like visually in that. I think it was them talking, but that actually was in game like AI creation. What that was.
Oh,
Yeah. You can look it up. It's like powered by whatever. I forget the name of the technology, but it's not used in a whole lot yet. But that's going to be an interesting one, I'm sure.
definitely.
And thinking about like, things that like just affect so much stuff. It's like Halo 2 with online multiplayer on
Oh
Xbox,
man, yeah, game changer.
or yeah, or looking at like stuff like
Half-Life
World of
with the way that you
Warcraft
have
for
a
MMOs.
Half-Life, the way the story
Yes.
unfolds and the way that's told
Yeah,
to you.
the first game to
Excellent.
have like actual set pieces, moments where like you're not in full control, like moments where you have to sit there in a tram that takes you to your job, a game with like set pieces, that was not a thing before. And it was like it was actually Halo Combat Evolved that like pushed that one step further and actually was like a game with a lot of cutscenes and like a full-blown like intricately vast story that pushed that whole thing even further. And then it was furthered upon even more with Half-Life 2. You know what I mean? Like it's just there's a constant progression, and sometimes it seems like some people don't notice it. It's like I've made videos in the past, like talking about things in games that people don't appreciate, like skyboxes or just
Yeah,
the
seen that video. It's a great video.
environment. Yeah. Or the
Loved it.
environment or music or whatever. Yeah, I mean, that was a spur of the moment video. I really liked it. It turned out wonderful. And I don't know
Loved
if I
it.
can
Yeah,
ever
loved
hit
it.
that stride again. You know what I mean? Like I've tried to come close and I've made some other things and they're pretty good too, but like it's just, there's things that people don't appreciate or don't understand that like push things further, that you just didn't see before, and sometimes they end up being game changers. Sometimes they're not, sometimes they just get lost. It's like playing the original Splinter Cell where you can shoot fish tanks and the water level like will lower to the right point and stuff like that, or realistically breaking glass. Some of those things are like reflections and mirrors, which is a thing this year that has really bugged me.
Not in Alan Wake either, is it? Which is weird.
No, Alan
In
Wake
Alan Wake 2.
2, Alan Wake 2, Hogwarts Legacy, and Dead Island 2, all three use the same weird thing with their mirrors. It's a mirror. Now, I think it's an Unreal 5 thing or like a late Unreal 4 thing or something, but the mirrors um, are not just completely blank, right? You can see like a little bit of your shadow, but it's distorted and like weird looking, but it's not a reflection. And all three of those games do that. Dead Island 2 does that. Hogwarts Legacy does that, and Alan Wake 2 does that. At least Alan Wake 2, it's not that often, and it's like in very, very, very specific places. But in like Hogwarts Legacy, you don't have to worry about that game either, but there are like a few mirrors here and there, and it's like you can see other people being reflected, kind of, but like you're not being reflected. It's like a weird whatever. And Dead Island 2 does it in a couple spots, and I'm like you'll be looking in like a mirror or like a window or something, and like you can see some stuff being reflected. They actually did a weird thing. There's a one of the hubs in Dead Island 2. It's like there's a little gym in the little house that you're in. And there's a
Yeah.
mirror in the gym, and when you look through the mirror, the reflection is the room as you would
Right.
see it, right? As if it was a reflection, but it's a static two-dimensional version of that room as the reflection, and then you are reflected as like a disembodied, weird-looking shadow thing. I'm like, why even have the mirror? Like, I love Dead Island 2.
Check it
Everything
out.
else is perfection, but the freaking reflections and mirrors don't exist, and it's just weird. That's like one of the only mirrors in the game, but there's other things that could reflect that just don't, and it just make them blank. Like, just have them reflect light. Don't like use 2D pictures of your set area and as reflect. I don't know why they did that. I don't know why they felt the need to do that, but
Weird.
they did it. So
Very weird, dude.
it is very weird. I don't get it. But yeah. Um, any other horror games you played this year?
I played like a couple of little things, but most of the time, and I think this is just the nature of making stuff, as you know, man, it's just there's things that you'd love to be able to just sit down and spend the time on. but then kind of duty calls, you know. So like most of the things I've been playing have been older stuff. So nothing kind of new. Like this year, I'm thinking, what did I do in 2023? I finished off the Evil Within series. I finished off Dead Space series, and then gone back to a couple of Resis. So it's like that's been most of my time. And I think this year is going to be kind of the same, where I'm doing Silent Hill. I'm doing Silent Hill from the start, you know, all of them. And then you think, right, well, which new horror games am I going to have time for? I'll be able to play the AAA big ones, but then the only other ones that are on my radar, and there's so many every single year that you could play, the only two that I definitely will spend the time on is Tormented Souls 2 and Astral Rot. I fucking adore
they're making
Tormented
Souls 2?
Yes, coming out this year.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So I got a good relationship with the studio, and so I'll definitely be covering that 100%. I adore Tormented Souls 1.
Yeah, I haven't played it, but I watched your video on it and a few other people's videos on it. It looked pretty good.
Oh, so good, man. And yeah, I adored it. So
I knocked out I played a few new games, and I knocked out a few games on my backlog as well this last year. But yeah, I mean, I played a couple days ago. I beat Bendy and Ink Machine finally.
Oh right, okay. That's that's quite an older game, isn't it? That trying to think when that came out.
2014 or something. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Older. Yeah, I've had it for a while. It was always of interest to me. It was one of those games like came out after like Five Nights at Freddy's and stuff, and people just kind of like, oh, it's just a what they call now mascot horror game, which I've only recently been learning is a term.
I didn't realize that was the thing.
Yeah, it's a mascot horror. Look at like Poppy Playtime and
is that what they're
called? Bendy and whatever. They're all called mascot horror games. Any game that uses like nostalgia of like kid stuff to be horror is considered a mascot horror game, apparently. So
okay.
Even if all of them don't inherently fit that, but so Bendy and the Ink Machine is pretty good. They made it episodically, and they basically built the story as they released it. So they really didn't know they were not really a plan. And initially, as it came out, the episodes didn't really, like each chapter, there's like 5 chapters. The game's probably 6-7 hours long. Didn't really add up that much. So then when they did a full release, they went back and modified old levels to add things to make it make more sense. And it's not super jarring, but there's some things you're like, well, it's kind of weird that it just went straight to that or straight to that. And it's fine. But they released a new one last year, the year before, called Bendy and the Dark Revival, which I now definitely want to play because it takes Bendy and the Ink Machine takes a little bit from BioShock here and there, but there's no guns or like special abilities necessarily. But Bendy and the Dark Revival, they built that thing from the ground up. It's in like Unreal 4 and it looks amazing. There's stealth. There's like teleporting like in Dishonored. They have melee weapons, but there's no guns. There's like stealth kills. It's a lot longer of a game. Like it's just overall looks phenomenal. And I really want to play it. But Bendy the Ink Machine was pretty good. I hated that final boss. It was easy and it was also a pain in the ass. But overall, I mean, a pretty good game as far as like atmosphere and stuff. Because it's like you took Mickey Mouse and stuff and made it into a game. Like you're in the game and it's all this kind of like inky.
Oh, nice.
Cell shaded kind of vibe. And the enemies are all kind of like evil demonic versions of like Mickey characters in a way, kind of changed, of course. It's pretty cool. And Bendy himself is like the main character, and he's technically a little demon, but he's like, a cutesy kind of character like Mickey, but there's an evil version of him in the game.
Ooh. Okay.
It's pretty good. The premise is cool, and it looks like the second one really like fleshed out and like really hit what their probably original vision was.
Well, you know what we're gonna have to do? You're gonna have to at some point over 2024 play Dead Space and RE4, and I'll check out Bendy and the Ink Machine.
Okay.
I'll give it a go.
Here's another one that you should check out: My Friendly Neighborhood.
Is that similar to like My Neighbor, whatever those games are, like that group of games where it's like that neighbor's trying to kill you? Is it any way related to that?
That's Hello Neighbor. No, it's not.
Oh no, nothing.
It's of no relation. We just don't know how to name video games. No,
Okay.
so My Friendly Neighborhood is made by the two brothers of the guy who made Dusk. Have you ever seen Dusk?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have seen it.
So yeah, it's Ducky Samansky and John Samansky or something. And they made My Friendly Neighborhood, which is the biggest and best homage to classic Resident Evil ever.
Wow.
But from the first person perspective.
Okay, great. Great.
And it takes a lot of the cool things that they did in like the Resident Evil remakes where like, you know, if you've used a key in the entire game, it has a check mark so you can get rid of it.
Oh, nice. I'm looking
It
at it right
actually
now.
doesn't have that much music, and so when you go to a save station, it has music, and you have limited saves. You use tokens to save the game. So
Oh, my language here,
Resident
dude.
Evil and your inkwells and stuff like that. Uh, you have guns and melee weapons and stuff like that, but the guns are like it's a Rolodex and stuff like that because the whole thing is My Friendly Neighborhood is a Sesame Street type thing. And you're a technician who's sent to turn off this broadcast signal of the show that just came on out of nowhere.
Oh, dude,
And
this
so it's
sounds
like
so good.
it's like the Muppets and Sesame Street gone wrong, but it's also a complete subversion of all expectations. It's a horror game, but it really isn't that scary for the most part. And it's a little bit more heartwarming. It's about hope and different things like that, and it's really cool. But I'm not going to say it doesn't have its moments. It definitely has its moments of scary, but it's so well done, man, and it plays so well. And there's so many secrets and like things. It has that Metroidvania feel, right? Like classic Resident Evil, where you're backtracking a lot to do keys and all that. You have a lot of ammo management and searching around for little hidden things and secrets and all that. It's fantastic. I recently beat it. I'm working on like a small video on it. It's more of like a more of an essay kind of video, so it's not really like overall reviewing the game. It's more of like its themes, but I tackle a little bit about how I feel about the gameplay and stuff too. It has a shotgun that shoots like letters, and it's great.
Nice.
And the enemies you don't kill them; they just kind of go flying. And they're puppets, and they're talking a lot. And so they just say like spout random crap, and they kind of come at you like they're gonna give you an aggressive hug, and they squeeze you and like throw you.
Oh, Jesus.
But it's not like they're really trying to kill you per se. They even add in the mechanic that like Resident Evil 1 had where you know, you would catch the bodies on fire to
Oh,
get rid of them.
nice.
Okay, well
Oh,
the
nice.
enemies get back up when you leave the room and you come back. Oh, it also has like Resident Evil 1 style transitions to new rooms where the doors open and stuff too.
Bro,
Yeah.
you are literally speaking
But
my
this time
fucking
you have
language
duct
here.
tape. So you duct tape the Muppet people up so they don't hurt themselves or anyone else, and they're just kind of like duct taped and they're still talking, so they're like blah 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 blah, and like that's what you hear 90% of the game is just them gibbering and jabbering about things. But they're also kind of like a little twisted. They're not like really trying to kill you. There are some that do. I'm not going to spoil anything, but they will occasionally say some weird stuff that are like a little off kilter because they're normally just saying they're like, oh, you know, I know how to count my ABCs and just like random crap like that. And then occasionally they'll be like, I, you know, I beat the crap out of Arnold and shoved him in a locker. And you're like, huh? You did what now? Or, you know, like they'll just be like, oh, I love violence or something. And you're like, okay,
He's one to
that's a little
watch.
off there. Might need to duct tape you up real quick.
Yeah, you got
There's
the
like
one who
different there's like
loves
different
arson.
enemy types and stuff. You have to like there's a lot of puzzles. Like it's a lot of Resident Evil style puzzles, like going and finding gears or finding a bunch of like things that you got to put together on like a keyboard or different things like that. And you got to like line up words and just solve different things, right? And there's optional puzzles, optional things because there's multiple different endings to the game. There's optional things you can solve that can give you different endings. There's a couple boss fights and stuff like that. Like it's just it's a really cool little game. They even have it'll be quite the surprise when it happens, but they have their version of Crimson Heads.
Oh, okay.
When you hit
nice.
a certain point in the game that you've been to plenty of times, there's a Crimson Head, you know, type thing, which is these Muppets that are just like they're not explained. I would love to know like why they're like this, but they're just like they're entirely made out of metal, and so they're a lot harder to take down. But they're just like they're like chrome, and you're like, what? and they're like Crimson Heads, where they're like almost unstoppable, but they can be defeated. It just takes a lot more to kill them or to take them down. It's also kind of like one of the most like kid friendly horror games or like survival horror games ever. But at the same time, it could leave a kid with PTSD. So like it's crazy, but it's so good. And like some people like labeled it a mascot horror game, but it's almost like an anti-mascot horror game. It's so much not what those games typically are in any way whatsoever. Because you're not like a lot of those games also love to like make you run from things and like hide in lockers and stuff. You don't do any of that. You don't hide at all. There's no there are some things you can run from. And luckily it is very much like old Resident Evil where like they don't follow you through things. It's from room to room, So they don't like the enemies don't come through the door with you. So it's like very old school Resident Evil, not like I can't remember in the remake. Do they follow you in the remake? I think they do, don't they? Or no, they don't. No.
In what? In Resident Evil 1 remake?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, no. It wasn't until 2 that they would start doing that. They would follow you through.
Yeah, you're fine. With this game, I just looked now.
Yeah.
Coming out to PS5 soon.
Yep.
So playing that this year. If that comes out this year, I'm playing that this year.
I'd say I probably will. I wanted to get it on Xbox, which I might still, but someone bought it for me for Christmas on PC, and it actually runs like even on my computer, which isn't the most amazing thing ever, and it's a laptop. It ran like smooth as butter. It doesn't require a lot to run. I think it was made on Unity and stuff. Its specs are pretty low for it, actually.
Dude, can't wait. That is. I've literally just been making a note now. Yeah. I cannot forget about this. You've sold me on this.
Oh, it's good, man. They even added a few updates on some stuff. They added like a horde mode that you can play too, like after you beat the game if you want. It has like a survival horde mode where you just fight off the enemies.
Oh man.
I guess you could call it their version of mercenaries kind of thing.
Dude, so sold. You should.
It's really good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
honest to God, thank you, Dan. And I know that.
And I think even like full price, it's only like $25 or $30 too, which is also a pretty good thing.
And I know that I take the piss, right? Especially with yourself, where you'll champion these games that generally nobody else really loves, right? Like you were talking about Evil West earlier, and I was thinking, that just came to PS Plus, right? And I know that you're championing it, and I was like, I'm not gonna. I'm not even going to look at it, right? I know what kind of game this is. Yeah. So I'm not going to even go there. But this one...
There's people who like Evil West. It's pretty good.
Yeah. We don't need to go down that avenue. I think on like one of our lost episodes, I think I was just taking the piss for ages about all these games that you...
we definitely had a big talking point on it before at one point, yeah.
But
it's kind of one of the things that helped me stand out as well, though, so...
100%, yeah. And I mean, this is the thing. Like we were saying right at the start of this, there's games are for everyone, right? And there's games that some people absolutely adore that nobody else likes, right? Like Resident Evil 6. And there's people out there.
Or Resident Evil 4, because, neither of us are the biggest fans of original RE4, and that's probably enough to get us crucified, so...
Yes,
might have to go into hiding after this drops for a little bit.
I think you're right, man. I'll start batting down the hatches.
Yeah,
but it's been a pleasure to podcast with you today, my dude. I've really enjoyed it
for sure. We finally broke the curse, and we can get this out finally. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time coming.
So, what do you look at? So, other than Tormented Souls 2 and stuff, what are you looking forward to this year mainly?
So many games. I mean, if we keep it to survival horror, then I've got to obviously reference Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2 remake coming out this year, apparently. So many question marks around it. Bloober Team doing it. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, it's got big shoes to fill. I mean, Silent Hill 2 is an absolute masterpiece. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. I think they could do it, but who knows? We'll see.
Exactly right. And I mean, apart from that, we got Alone in the Dark coming out this year.
Yeah.
And I played the demo for that. It's like a 5 minute. It's wild to even call it a demo. It's like 5 minutes. I remember booting it up and I was thinking, oh yeah, I can do a little video on this. And then literally, so it was over. And I was like, there's no way. Like, there's no way I could even if I tried to stretch something out, There is not enough here. So that's caught my attention. I don't know if it's going to be good, but it's caught my attention. And I suppose that'd be something to have a look at.
I'm really looking forward to Little Nightmares 3.
I've never played Little Nightmares before, dude.
You should honestly, definitely check them out. They're really, I mean, a lot of people love them, but they're like Little Big Planet, but horror kind of thing, in a way.
Dude, when we're talking about backlogs, I've got them. I own them.
Okay.
And I haven't played them. So that's gonna happen at some point. Just haven't got around to it yet. I got a feeling that Clock Tower is coming out this year, but I could be wrong on that. I got a feeling that Clock Tower is getting remade for this year for PS5, and that's like a real classic survival horror. So I've got a feeling. That's out this year. I'm having a look now. So it was revealed this year, early in 2024. So that will be. So apparently it's an enhanced remaster, but I mean that's one to keep an eye on if you're in the survival horror, if you're in a survival horror mood. Originally came out in 1995. That game.
Okay, I have to check that.
Yeah, on the SNES. So that's one I've never played. That everyone has said to me that it's immense.
And so did you ever play the Siren games?
Yes, dude. Yes, I played the PS2. The first one, played that and loved it, and then for whatever reason never played any of the sequels. And there was a great one on PS5 they released episodically, wasn't there?
I think they released one on PS5. Yeah.
No, PS3. Sorry. Yeah, and they were episodic, and then I think they got like a kind of like a touch of paint put on it for PS4. I think. Yeah. I never played those. I've wanted to for such a long time.
I've never played any of them, but I saw a lot on. I think I've watched a whole playthrough of the original, maybe something like that. I know they're pretty like divisive. Like, there's a lot of people who love them. There's also a lot of people who hate them.
I can see why. It's all about just, it's a sneaking game, really. I mean, there is some combat. Like, when it comes to, like, when we talk about, like, mascot games and stuff.
Yeah.
The big thing for me is always a case of if there's no way for you to be able to, like, kind of interact, it's just hiding. Kind of takes me out of it a little bit. I kind of don't really want to play it too much. I like having some ability for combat.
Yeah.
And so that's why, like, Outlast and things like that, I enjoy them, but it's not what I like from the genre. I like being able to.
Yeah, I much prefer like the action horror, survival horror type stuff. But like I like Outlast, and I think the thing that I liked about that, like that stood out, was just like not being able to fight back was the difference. I guess I was so used to that, and that was like one of the only games like that I really cared for, where you just kind of have to run away, you have to hide, and everything's so imposing and like insane and. I enjoyed that for what it was, but I don't play a lot of those games. I also thought it was a weird addition that they threw into like Evil Within. You know what I mean? Like, you don't really ever really have to use it, except for like at the beginning when it's required. But like throughout the game, you don't really need to hide from anything at all. You know what I mean? But you can if you want. It was just like it was thrown in there as a marketing thing. To see if they could sell extra copies because it has hiding, It's
one of those things that the first time you have to use that in Evil Within, it works really well. Like when you're in that kind of like village area.
It's early in the game and you don't have anything, you lost everything, you know what I mean? Like it makes sense. But after that point, it's like, I don't really need this.
Yeah. No.
You can defeat everything, even the keeper later in the game, and like you can defeat everything or run from it or whatever. There's always a way to fight it. But, then they add those, like, as if you're supposed to, like, hide and stealth your way through the entirety of the game.
Yeah, it was a weird choice. Great game, though. I mean, even Within 1 and 2 slaps so much. I love them, man.
2 is so underrated. It's so underrated.
Oh, I love it so much. So good. So good.
Yeah, 2.
Well, dude, I'm probably going to have to shoot off, I think.
All right, it's probably about time for me, too.
I got to start making a move if we can... start rapping. I got somebody over in 8 minutes.
Oh,
they'll be hammering at my door.
All good, man. Yeah. I mean, it's been awesome talking to you, talking survival horror games. Hopefully we can do it again. It's nice to break the curse, finally get it happening.
Now it's done. Dude, I'm
I
up
gotta,
for getting together
you
whenever
gotta
you
let
want
me
me.
know when you play My Friendly Neighborhood. So.
Oh man,
And
yes.
I'll definitely
What?
check out Dead Space and RE4 this year too. So that'll happen.
Good lads. What I'll have to do is that when My Friendly Neighborhood comes out on PS5 and I put a bit of time into it, I'll probably look to see if I can get you on my podcast.
Oh, of course, I'll do it. Yeah,
And that'd be class to
that'd
get
be
you
awesome.
on,
Yeah,
because at least then we can bounce some shit together then,
yeah, yeah,
which would
yeah.
be great. So I'd love to do that. But no, it's anytime you need me, dude, I'm around. Just let me
Awesome.
know, and we
Sure.
can sort it out.
Well, before we wrap it up fully, I want to say, is it worth me playing Final Transmissions as someone who enjoyed Callisto? He's stumped.
I think with what I was saying earlier, with how difficulty's been changed,
Yeah.
and how that ends, which I'm not going to spoil for you,
Right.
I think you will sour on Callisto so much if you played
Really?
it. It adds nothing to the game. It's terrible, dude.
It's
It's
so sad
bad.
to hear.
It's bad. It's bad. And whatever you do, don't watch. I remember covering it. Don't watch it because I just had a rant. I just had a rant about how much I hate it.
Yeah.
And then I say in that that I'm gonna spoil it, and I spoil the ending because it's so bad that it may put you off the game. I would say avoid it, mate. If you're at this point where you're thinking you've got a nice experience with Callisto, don't go back and play it again because it will only tarnish it. Honest to God.
Okay.
Unless you want to play something bad, in which case go for it.
Oh, it's tempting. It's tempting.
It sucks,
all right, man.
dude.
Well, like I said, it was good talking to you. Definitely we'll do it again sometime soon. If you play My Friendly Neighborhood and want me on, I'll definitely make time. I'll be on.
100%.
I'll make sure to check out that stuff. Yeah, I think that's it. All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
Been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate
Of course,
it.
man. No problem.
All right, you take care of yourself.
All right, I'll see you around.
Catch you later, mate.